Our program is praxis-oriented. It's a praxis-oriented living and learning community. In terms of living, our fellows were placed in summer housing on campus in Cary Hall, living together in a suite that we hope provided an additional space to build interpersonal relationships. We learned from last year that this kind of togetherness time was crucial for building the trust and support among fellows that they needed as they journeyed through the program. In terms of learning, our fellows participated in a weekly 2-hour seminar on Wednesdays with myself and Catherine. As instructors, we set out to connect the dots between the academic themes that we were exploring each week through texts and films, and we created a space for critical self-reflection based on their work experiences with our community partner organizations. In terms of a space for capacity building and professional development, our fellows work 35 hours a week for 10 consecutive weeks, providing critical support to programs and projects at their respective organizations. We also offered informal networking opportunities for community partner organizations through an orientation breakfast and end of summer program luncheon. And so we hope that these two strategies build capacity for both the organizations within and across the organizations. In terms of professional development, providing a living wage to our students is living into our social justice imperative. I am proud that our program offers a competitive living wage to Lang students in the summer. And in addition to the $5,000 stipend, fellows receive professional development training and support from university staff colleagues in career services and student health services. To date, I know that some fellows remain with their organizations. One fellow wrote a thought-provoking piece for his organization's blog, while another fellow is helping his organization with a conference that will take place next month here at the New School. And many of them have been recruiting other New School students to participate in their organization's work. And so I look forward to the many ways that Lang will continue to partner with our newest community partners. Now let me turn it over to Sarah Giffen, who will serve as the MC for the night. Sarah is a class of 2014 graduate of Lang and was a summer 2013 fellow with the nonprofit organization Groundswell. Thank you, Sarah, for your participation tonight.
Thank you, Judy. So a year ago, I was up here about to present my own summer experience, and it's just so amazing. I'm so grateful to Judy and to this program in general to have been able to be a part of this year's fellowship, to have that continuity and community as I am still learning and growing alongside you all. And it's been such a pleasure to know you. So thank you, Judy. And now, without further ado, I will introduce Aasim to tell us about your summer.
So I spent my summer at WEACT for Environmental Justice. It is a nonprofit organization located in West Harlem. So I'm just going to go over a little bit of the themes that came up during my fellowship experience in the seminars and at the internship. I broke everything down into 3 questions that I thought were the most important thing, and I thought they came up the most. One of those that came up was how do you come into a space as your authentic self? And the reason why this came up a lot is because of the conversations that we had in our seminars. On the bottom, you can see a little bit of the topics that we tried to talk about as a group and dismantle and break down. And a lot of times, we are confronted with the question of how do you come into this space and bring in your experiences in this academic setting, because some of the experiences we face don't always fit into this mold, especially for me personally, working in the environmental justice field, which focuses a lot on environmental racism and low-income people, and I come from that background as well, and I often clash with people because of the different experiences that I've seen. So, you get a little more passionate about certain things. So that was something that came up a lot. The next question is, how do I pursue a financially feasible career in civic engagement and social justice without falling victim to the nonprofit industrial complex, which is a super loaded question. Super loaded question, obviously, but I was fortunate enough at my time at WEACT to actually be introduced to the board of directors and the staff and see how they interact and how they maneuver these tough questions and get funding without having to change the agenda and their true motives. And last question, how do we unpack these broad and controversial issues? As you can see on the bottom, we talked a lot about social capital, transformative learning. That was huge. I know a lot of the times I don't really think about myself when it comes to this work, and Judy really challenged, and Catherine, who's no longer with us, they really challenged us to really put ourselves in this work and really use our identity as a fuel for that. So that was something that was great for me. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of an insight on WEACT, it was founded in 1988. It's located in West Harlem. They have a staff of 11, but they've grown to, they have the capacity over 630,000 affiliates. And this isn't members. They only have a technical member base of 300, but they have partners that include the United States Environmental Protection Agency, Columbia University's Research Institute. So they're able to do these really powerful research projects over the span of 10 to 15 years and really get great results. The reason why they were founded was actually to create Riverbank State Park. Does anybody here know about Riverbank State Park? Great. That park is amazing because it's technically, I can't say it's the biggest green rooftop garden, but it is almost like a rooftop garden because it's a park that's built on top of a waste plant, and it's this amazing park. The founder, Peggy Shepard, who's actually in this picture, back in the late 80s, her and a couple of her friends, they actually got together and they held hands and shut down the highway to turn this park into a green space. And the reason why they did that is because Harlem is a zone Harlem and northern Manhattan in general are just stricken with all of our New York City's waste plants. 5 of the 6 diesel bus depots are in northern Manhattan, as well as most of the sewage plants, which scientifically doesn't make any sense because, as you guys know, sewage goes downhill, and Harlem is on hills, which is why most of the neighborhoods are named after heights. And when you look at research studies, unfortunately, a lot of these decisions are made not based off of class, but based off of race. So these are the principles that WEACT works on. Race, class, community organizing, and civil disobedience. So these are my goals for the summer at WEACT. Research Mayor de Blasio's affordable housing plan, policies around healthy and affordable housing, and then take all this information and create a nice infographic based off of it. I ended up doing a lot more than that, but that was what I initially came in to do. So this is just us working. This is a typical day in the office. About 3 weeks in, I actually got to participate in the rent freeze rallies and the hearing that took place at Cooper Square. And it was an historic hearing because while we did not get the rent freeze, and for those that don't know what the rent freeze, it was basically about keeping, for rent stabilized buildings, it was about keeping that rate for 1 more year, which has never been done. But while we never got that, we didn't get that, it was only 1% for the first year, which is the lowest it's ever been. But the issue that's going on in the housing crisis right now is that the tenants aren't happy and the landlords aren't happy. So there's this real kind of friction that's going on. But we could talk about that for a while, so I'm just going to keep going. This is a flyer that I made for a membership barbecue that we had. This is a meeting that we had, and as you can see, somebody kind of liked my flyer. This is a summer movie series that we helped run, and we played environmental justice documentaries over on Harlem Piers, and we had a pretty good turnout. I wanted to talk about this theme at the end. Intersectionality was big in our work, and as a foreshadow, this is a campaign training that we had at Mothers on the Move and Rebel Diaz's art space. And on you guys left, this is Cecil Corbin-Mark. He's the deputy director, and on the right is Anna Parks, who actually does lead testing in people's homes. And they were just giving an example of how climate change works And what she's doing is she's running faster. And as she's running, Cecil was putting more layers of clothes on her. So it's a really small way to show that the harder the earth works, the more. I'm sorry. I just get really frustrated with these issues. But yeah. So pretty much the harder the harder the earth is working, the more pressure is put on it. So it has to work harder, but it's also getting hotter. And that's what she's doing. This is the meeting that we had with a housing developer. They are trying to build housing units on the pier for Columbia. And Peggy and Cecil, they have so much clout in WEACT that they're one of the gatekeepers to even get permission to build these housing units. And it was a really interesting day because it started off him coming in there thinking that he had all the control, and he was telling them this is what we're going to do. And it turned around to everybody at WEACT saying, you have to slow down, and you don't come in telling us what you're going to do. You have a conversation with us in the community. And they ended up inviting him to the town meeting. The main issue that they had with this guy is he was coming in there and he was saying we have about 100 units and there are going to be some affordable units, but he never said how many. And when it came down to it, out of those 100, only 30 were, which completely goes against the 80-20 bill that de Blasio is proposing. This is a panoramic picture of the WEACT membership barbecue that we had. This is a slide just shows kind of like the research that I was looking at. That's in our environmental health portal. So I was kind of just looking at indoor air quality, safety maintenance, and I was also looking at documents like what are the housing rates? How expensive has New York really got? And a lot of the information that I was looking at was kind of mind-opening for me and really surprising. This is the first version of the infographic that I made, which has minimal graphics, and my supervisor got on me about that. So this was the final draft. And this draft is actually going to be used at the Affordable and Healthy Housing Conference that's going to take place in 2 weeks, actually, November 22nd, 23rd. So takeaways, intersectionality, social capital, and I really realized politics equals power. If you do arts, no matter what you do, you have to get involved in legislation because that's it's just important. So after WEACT, I've been taking place in a climate justice rally. That was awesome. Like I said, the Healthy and Affordable Housing Summit is going to be here in November. I've been working with new school students, trying to get some stuff done. I've had one of the directors come in and speak to a class, and we kind of like dismantled environmental racism. And the one thing that I'm most proud of right now is that I'm actually combining WEACT to I'm securing them a partnership with another internship I work for, which is Pips Rewards. They take rewards services, and pretty much they give people rewards points for switching to sustainable products, and then people can use those points to either buy other products or they can donate them to a charity or organization that they believe in, and that next charity is going to be WEACT. So that's it.
This is partially a question for you and partially just about the program. I'm wondering about the requirements for continuity after the summer program ends. So those things you mentioned that were after WEACT, were those things that you did on your own, out of like your own interest, or were they requirements to continue and follow up with the program?
No, there weren't requirements at all. The relationship.
I also just want to say congratulations. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I developed a really unique relationship with the members at WEACT, where they became an extension of my network, but more importantly, they became my friends. I text my supervisor all the time. We go out, we get beers, but we also talk about how we're going to plan this next food justice rally. So it's, going back to how I said, how this work is transformative, how you bring your identity into it, and when that happens, you don't even think about it as work. And I think that's what's made all of these new partnerships happen. I never, that's really it.
Got a question over here?
I'm curious how you chose WEACT and what, I guess, going in, you said that going in as your most authentic self. I guess what was your stance or point of view before going in?
Yeah, it's I'm glad you asked that question because I'm just gonna start by saying there are 15 interns at WEACT this summer, which is the most that they usually have, and all of the interns found WEACT by googling environmental justice in New York City, and WEACT was first, which is kind of sad, only because I wish that I had a better story to say how I found WEACT. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that happened. And when we talk about our authentic self, I just remember going in saying, because I do music as well, and I remember going in to this internship thinking, I have to be really proper. I have to, you know, um, uphold to a certain standard, and it was weird. I sat down with my supervisor, and she looked at me for a second, and she was like, "Why are you use like she? I guess she was like, I produce music," and then I told her, "Oh, I do sound design," and then she was like, "Why did you said sound design? Like, you could have just been straight up with me." So we had a lot of those discussions all the time. Like, you don't have to like dress up for me. Like, it's okay. And by the end, that really made all the difference.
Well, thank you for bringing us your authentic self, Aasim.
Appreciate it.
And
So I made a little prezi for you all. All right, so my name is Karen Louviere. My major is urban studies, and my minor is ethnicity and race studies. And my fellowship site was at the Rebel Diaz Arts Collective. So the Rebel Diaz Arts Collective is a collective of artists, organizers, and educators working together to build community through the arts. It's also volunteer-based, so we don't get paid for this. The only time I actually did get paid was actually during the fellowship. And we are an autonomous group, so we're also not nonprofit. So before being a fellow at the CSJ Fellowship, I was already a member for 3 years, and I assisted in organizing an events. I am a beginner DJ. I'm still working on my skills, by the way. I am a photographer. That's also something I'm working on, and I am the cashier at Boogie Mike's. I will tell you more about that soon. And social justice issues that we focus on mostly is gentrification, police brutality, and immigrant rights. So this is just a photo of my first time actually DJing at the Women's International Month Boogie Mics. And the reason why I put that up is because, of course, you just want to show your first time, like actually being on the turntables. And a funny story about this is that I told the members of the collective last minute that I was actually learning how to DJ, and they thought it was only right to have a woman DJ at this Women International Month Boogie Mics. So this is a photo of me speaking at a rally back in 2013. So to give a little background, we lost our physical space. It was, like a home to me, and of course Carla would speak on it. So we were pretty much going through a lot, but that particular day was supposed to be the Women's International Month Boogie Mics of 2013. But because we got kicked out the day before, we ended up having a rally, and people spoke about like their feelings of, us losing the space and such. So in connection to the Art Act BX, I brought in my ideologies to the academic courses, the classes that I've been taking, and I've been having a lot of debates about certain issues because, of course, this is Ling, and everybody comes in with a different point of view. And I was always struggling with, being able to be assertive with my points of views. So, say if I say something and someone passionately say something back to me, I would just stay quiet and won't even, defend my point. So, another thing too is that I notice if I come in with my experiences of being low income and also a Black female I would tell people about my experiences, but then in academia courses, there's always this thing where it's not written in academia papers, so it's not valid. So these are the learning agreements that we came up with in June. These were my personal ones though. So I wanted to learn how to grant write and also look for grants that can help the Art Act BX, and also expand on outreach and skills. So being able to go out to communities and actually hand out flyers and talk to them about what we do and how can our events and workshops benefit the community. Also connecting with businesses around the community, like just getting to know people, because we recently got a physical space at Mothers on the Move, so we're there temporarily for now, but just being able to get to know like the community, and also work on like organizing events such as block parties and boogie mics and other like workshops and stuff, and then also collaborating with other organizations. So for instance, with Aasim, you mentioned that we're collaborating with an event in November, and hopefully that will turn out well. So this is an example of an event that we actually helped curate. So DJ Kool Herc, he is the father of hip hop. He was the reason why hip hop even existed and why hip hop is where it's at now. He was one of the first DJs to actually, use the turntables and scratch and everything. And because it's 41 years of hip hop existing, BMHC, which stands for Bronx Music Heritage Center, they decided to like have this block party for him, and he was actually spinning at this event. One funny thing that I noticed that he always mentions when he comes into like spaces to speak is that a lot of DJs, they tend to use headphones and like all these other equipment to like scratch and stuff like that. He says how like when he first started DJing, he didn't even need the headphones. So I thought that was pretty cool, just like hearing an actual DJ like drop knowledge. Yeah. So Boogie Mics is a monthly series of open mics that we have every first Fridays of the month. It's still happening. It's $7 per person, and you can perform like up to 2 songs. So pretty much like during the summer, we only had 2 open mics because of the one in June had to be pushed into July because of like other things happening, such as like leakages and stuff like that in the space. So we had our boogie mics in July and also in August. And during the fellowship, my role was pretty much like being the treasurer, so keeping up with the expenses and the money that we receive from like the people and stuff, and also being a photographer and also still being the cashier. And these are just photos of the boogie mics from August. So you just see like the host, Warren Britt, he's performing. That's the 3rd picture on the bottom. And then you also see like other performers and stuff. So the People Power Movement, I'm glad we're actually about to talk about them. They're a group of like organizers who are trying to like get people in the communities to make change, like make social change. So instead of it being just like elected officials or stakeholders and stuff like that, it's actually people who grew up in these communities having a voice. So during the summer, I also I supported them in this campaign that they had about pretty much saving the Kingsbridge neighborhood, which is in the Bronx. So to give a background of what's happening, the Kingsbridge Armory is this landmark where like people used to actually, like guards used to, I guess, train for wars and stuff like that. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to turn this into like the world's biggest ice skating rink arena. So it's supposed to be 9 ice skating rinks in one. And we thought it was problematic because we know that this is going to lead to gentrification in terms of people getting displaced out of the communities, and not just the people, but also the small business owners. And already we start to see it happening. 3 businesses are already gone out of the 13 that already been hit with the rent increases. And also 2 or 3 people already moved out of this one particular building I'm about to talk about next. So this photo was taken at a tenant association meeting. What's special about this is the fact that we had this meeting with like all of the people in this particular building, which is actually where one of the members live, named JSB. He's like to the far right with the afro. And what was great about it is how the people in that meeting decided, oh, let's have a tenant association meeting. So to us, it was great because we kind of guided them into being able to speak for themselves about what is the next thing we should do. Okay. So challenges that I've gone through the fellowship is pretty much like getting people to actually understand what's going on in the community. So outreaching to people, we went to these businesses and we asked them before they got hit with the rent increases, oh, do you think this is going to affect your community? And a lot of them said no, because it's not like it's Mike Bloomberg's plan to have this shopping mall. It's an ice skating rink, so it's gonna like not affect my community, like my businesses. And sure enough, you know, their landlord hits them with this like double rent increase. So they're like going through this right now. And especially the diner who used to pay $4,000, now they're going to pay, no, sorry, not $4,000. They were paying $7,000 and now they're going to pay $14,000. So another challenge that I was facing, especially at the ArtAct space, was pretty much how the ArtAct is male dominated. So there are only 4 females there out of 15 of us. And being able to like speak up without someone like trying to cut me off. And I know that they're not doing that on purpose, but I don't know if they realize like the role that I'm playing inside of the space. So that's something I was like really trying to develop, is more assertiveness. Like, how do I speak up when we have these meetings and when we have discussions and stuff? So transformative learning, one thing that I can say I got out of this experience was critical engagement. So being able to speak to communities and being able to have a discussion with people in these communities and having them be able to speak to me about their personal stories. And I want to show a quick, oh, can we show it? It's 1 minute and 44 seconds, yeah. You're going into your question. Oh, okay. So, all right. So, if anything, I could just send you all the link, and you all can like watch it yourselves. Okay. So the link was pretty much, thank you. No, it was pretty much showing how Rebel Diaz, the duo group, have like this show called And You Don't Stop, which is a TV show program showed on Telesud. And they were pretty much going into communities and like interviewing people about certain hashtags, like the Nice Gentrifier hashtag, and also like my NYPD and etc. Yeah. And then these are the 3 things that I've I want to say I pretty much learned throughout the whole like fellowship experience. So leadership skills were more like taking initiative. So like being able to like say, hey, I want to have this particular event, and then like being able to like do this event without just me being just a follower, I guess, because I always listen to the founders of the ArtAct space. Like I always let them do everything. So being able to actually do things on my own, and also like have support team from like the rest of the ArtAct members. And then assertiveness, so being able to speak to people without feeling unconfident, you know, without pretty much just, yeah, I feel like I'm just leave that right there. And then thinking critically about the issues happening in the community. And then after the Lang CESJ Fellowship, these are the 3 events that we have done. So we had like a BB King's event about raising money so people could actually go to Ferguson. Then we had a Boogie Mics in September, and then we also had the 3rd year anniversary Boogie Mics in October. And that's pretty much it.
Do we have a question or comment for Karen?
Hey, I was wondering how you first got involved with the collective and whether your relationship with the collective has changed after the fellowship experience.
Okay.
It's a great presentation, by the way.
Well, I feel like I'll take forever in terms of like saying how I got to the collective, but to shorten it up, I was a high school senior and my career counselor, she referred me to the RDAC, and I went to like an orientation and I really loved like the space and the people, and then I was taking workshops with them, and then I decided I wanted to become a member so I can keep like a good relationship. And then the other question was again, I'm sorry. I feel like it has, especially like from them seeing me grow from a high school senior to a college junior, and like how my learning experiences change within like seeing different things and seeing different things happening, like having a different experience every year.
Thank you, Karen. And it sounds like you can all ask her about the next Boogie Mics, which is coming up very soon.
Yeah.
But for now, we will hear from Colin Marston.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing tonight? Good, good. I'm just gonna pull this up really quickly. So, my name is Colin Marston, and I'm a literature student at Lang. And for my fellowship site this summer, I was at Visual Aids. So I'll give a little context as to what sort of organization Visual Aids is. This is from their website. Visual Aids utilizes art to fight AIDS by provoking dialogue, supporting HIV plus artists, and preserving a legacy because AIDS is not over. So Visual Aids is an arts nonprofit that works to sort of support artists with HIV in a contemporary sense, while also recognizing the history and legacy of the AIDS epidemic within artist communities. And I thought it would be helpful to sort of contextualize how the organization was founded. So mid-'80s New York City, you're at the height of the AIDS epidemic, and tens of thousands of people are dying every month. And there's institutional neglect. The Koch administration is not doing anything, from the highest levels of government down to the art world. From every major institution was failing this group of people that were dying. So there was a lot of grassroots social movements that sprung up in response to this neglect and this demand to get access to pharmaceuticals and to change public health. And one of the most well-known aspects of that is the group ACT UP, which is AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. And one aspect of ACT UP was their autonomous arts collective, which was called Grand Fury. And they did propaganda for ACT UP at different direct actions. And they also did politically motivated art. And around this time in 1988, they did a show at the New Museum called Let the Record Show. And this was a co-curation between Grand Fury and a curator at the New Museum, William Olander, who would go on to become one of the founders of Visual Aids. So I wanted to set up that context of Visual Aids emerging from the context of ACT UP and sort of struggles for healthcare in the late 80s. So what Visual Aids has been doing, they do exhibitions, public events, publications, educational outreach, and since 1991, the creation of the Frank Moore Archive Project, which was what I focused on mostly this summer. They have relationships with many different organizations around the city. For the exhibition that they did this summer called Ephemera as Evidence, they partnered with La Mama and the New School, actually. There was a New School class that curated the show, and visual aids helped facilitate that in the space with La Mama. And a big event that they put on is Day Without Art, which is a way for the arts community and for our institutions to come in dialogue about HIV/AIDS. And the New School actually has been pretty great about sponsoring events like that. So how did I find visual aids? I guess it was for several reasons. I first heard about visual aids from volunteering at the Bureau of this is a really complicated name, the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which is the city's only queer bookstore. And the owners were talking about it one day, and I was intrigued by it. And I was like, how do I learn more about this history that I feel as a young person hasn't been available to me in a lot of meaningful ways? And also in conjunction with that, I was doing a radio piece for another Lang class, whose professor is here tonight. We were doing radio stories, and I did a radio story on St. Vincent's, the former hospital at 11th Street and 7th Avenue that had one of the largest AIDS wards in the United States. And I interviewed a nurse who was working at St. Vincent's as a HIV/AIDS researcher, a nurse practitioner. So it was coming to New York, trying to figure out my queer identity and how I related to queer history. And it was especially pertinent because I think we're in a moment of there's enough time in between the heat of the epidemic where there's this process of historization happening. You see it with movies like The Normal Heart or How to Survive a Plague, and you see narratives being solidified. And I was curious about what archiving could do to shape my understanding of this epidemic, where it came from and how it has changed today, and what communities have been affected today that were not affected earlier. Also, I was attracted to the fact that this fellowship was very unique in comparison to your ordinary internship. The fact that they provided academic support, financial support, just a sense of communal caring, I feel like, in so many different aspects of your life, and I think that's really rare. So I was attracted to that. At Visual Aids, I mostly focused on their artist registry, which is an archive that collects images and artworks from artists who are living with HIV or who have died of AIDS. And they try to create a comprehensive, inclusive archive. So that means that anyone who's HIV positive can submit work to this archive. And I actually think that's a very unique thing. Because when you think about archiving, you think about what's in the New York Public Library collection. You have curators who pick out what's in there and what voices are heard, and it's really unique that this organization has this forum for any artist with HIV and any artist who's died of AIDS to have a place in this narrative and this history. So I spent long hours of archival research and trudging through the trenches of being alone and compiling images, which I like to do. But so it was a great joy. You had the solitude of working through the internet and these archives and going through the dregs of history almost, and what voices get heard today, and plucking them and including them in the archive. It was a really surreal experience. And then also simultaneously working with HIV positive artists in the city who are living, who wanted to incorporate their work into the archive. And so that included me helping scan it, Photoshop it, and make sure that it's properly, it can be representative in the archive, and having conversations with them and really getting to know the artist members, because I think an integral part of Visual Aids is the community of HIV plus artists that they serve and support through various methods, through, I think most notably, their artist grants that they do twice a year, which is really important for low-income artists with HIV who have so much medical expenses that this this organization exists. I think it's really unique. I think it's the only one in the United States that specifically supports artists with HIV in that context. And so you had artists coming in who were bringing in like these wonderful Broadway caricatures that had probably been sitting in their apartment for like 30 years. One of the artist members worked for the Village Voice, and he was the one who was doing all the sketching, and so I scanned that all in and wrote his biography. And then there was another artist member who was a photographer who documented a lot of New York queer culture pre-AIDS, which was a fascinating portal. Like Quentin Crisp, like these things that I feel are being forgotten post-AIDS. I was also, in addition to the archive, I was helping with their exhibitions, the ephemera as evidence, facilitating discussion, helping set up our exhibitions, helping with their safe sex campaign through the New York City Department of Public Health. They partner with them to provide these condom packets that include artist members' work on little cards with condoms. It's pretty great. I also helped move artwork. They were doing a benefit print to help out with the organization. And I was also reaching out to artist members who were applying for the grant application. It was the season for that. So this is a screenshot of what the digital archive is. There's two archives. There's a physical archive in their office. And then there's a more comprehensive digital archive. And so it's a very unique archive because these images, you go to their website, they're not intentionally put that way. Each time you click refresh, there's a new batch of artists. And you can search by subject, medium, demographic, or if you wanted to look for a specific artist. And I think that's a really awesome way of democratizing the archive in a unique way. And then this is an artist member I specifically put into the archive. And this is just the format of what an individual artist's profile on the website looks like, with their biography to the left, and then their works in the center, and you can click on it and like zoom it. Yeah. So moving forward, I published a reflection on my time archiving there on their website about a month ago, and they've also asked me, they do web galleries every month, online web galleries. So I wrote an essay for them, and I'm helping do their online web gallery, which will be published, I think, next week. And it's been really influential in grounding my interests in archiving and figuring out narratives for social movements and identity politics, and sort of making the art world and the archive world a place where we think about social justice and questions about what marginalized voices are heard, like really start that conversation. And it's really grounded, this internship has grounded my continuing work, curating an art exhibition at the New School in November called Grounding Future Queer, and I'm also at Book Forum right now, and the archiving helps with like independent research and doing that. Yeah, I just wanted to read a little excerpt of a poem that I thought was relevant. So this author is called Jacques Rubin, and this is just an excerpt from his poem, Something Black. Against the grain of your annihilation, this, my ransacked memory of you. But if I plunge into this via negativa, the figure I'll find is not on high, and I expect no revelation. I do not call your not dead being to an afterlife. I don't expect to recognize you waiting in some between the worlds. There is your name, I can say it, I can erase the line that crossed it out in letters heavy with place. You've left me a picture with your stamp on it, on the very rectangle of reality it represents, and you are there, in the place where you alone are absent. Thus, out of what's ended I fashion a truth of not accepting that you're not the silence. So yeah, that's it.
Are there any questions or comments for Colin?
Yeah, I was just wondering how you felt this kind of visual archiving worked with what we did in our class together with oral history. And do you think that these two kinds of archiving do they relate to each other? Are they in tension with each other? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I thought that there's so many connections between the two, and the oral history is what led me to the archiving of visual objects. So I think that there is a great connection between visual culture and the history of oral storytelling, and the preservation of that, preservation of memory in both of those acts. For groups of people that aren't always heard or remembered, like these are specific mediums that we can remember the things that like structures of domination don't want us to remember. So, yeah.
All right. And just keep in mind that at the end of these presentations, everybody will have an opportunity to talk one-on-one with the fellows at a little reception time. So keep them in mind. And now, Aliyah Hakim.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Aliyah. Can I move this? Is this cool? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So this summer I worked with the Laundromat project, and before I get into what they do, I'm curious to know what neighborhoods are in the room. Who's from what neighborhood? Who's living where? Bushwick. Okay. The Bronx. Where in the Bronx? Okay, cool. Grand Concourse. All right. The Bronx. Right. Prospect Park. You just shout them out. What about this side of the room? BedStuy. Washington Heights. All right. Cool. Great. All right. I promise it's relevant. Let me bring up my PowerPoint so I can explain why. So, this summer I worked with the Laundromat project. Here we go. And, here we go. So the Laundromat project works with communities of color, mainly, bringing arts programming, artists, and arts into laundromats and other everyday spaces as a means of building up those communities. So this summer I had the opportunity to work in the office internally with the team member, supporting the capacity of their programs. And I also had the chance to work at one of their programs, which they have in the laundromat. So every Sunday, from 12 to 3, they would host these community art workshops at the 3 neighborhoods that they mainly worked in: Hunts Point in the Bronx, Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, and in Harlem. And so they call them community art workshops, and I would just go to support the artists and the workshops they were doing those days. So what I have for you are photos and stories from those workshops I worked over the summer. So let's go to Harlem first. These pictures are from the Harlem Street Tram workshop, where participants got to create movements and stories and use dance to tell their stories about Harlem. So we wrote some of the prompts in chalk on the pavement, and this was one of them, asking what does Harlem mean to you? Another was, I shape Harlem by. And a really cool thing about this workshop was we were doing these movements, we were creating these dances, and we had also brought jump rope. So folks got to jump rope, and it became this huge spontaneous jump rope share session where people would take the rope, they started spinning it, you could jump in and out. It was really fun. Here's more jumping, epic hair. Here's a little video. Oh, snap!
Oh, she gonna jump in. Get it, girl!
Woo! Woo! Nice! So we had a lot of fun just talking about what Harlem means to us and dancing and moving and sharing all the while. Next, BedStuy. So this is from the workshop where we were making plant seeders, or like, I'll show you. Plant holders. So this artist recognized that a lot of the plant holders in BedStuy, in that neighborhood in particular, are made from recycled material. So we used recycled bottles to make plant holders. So I had the chance to make one. On the left, you'll see my cup filled with soil, and then on the right, it's growing in my dorms, the dorms we were living in over the summer. This is a pic from the workshop where we did button making around the prompt of, what do you think about the police in the neighborhood? So thinking about police presence, we asked two main questions. So how would you like to see the police? Like, how would you like to see them improve? And the second was, what would things look like without the police? And this really brought up some pretty heavy things, like a lot of conversation. One participant was reflecting on Eric Garner, and she knew him, so it elicited a lot in her. Those are participants sporting their buttons. And now to Hunts Point. So, funny thing, so these workshops are taking place every Sunday in these 3 neighborhoods, and I ended up spending the most time in Hunts Point, which I wasn't expecting to happen at all. But for that reason, I'm really glad I ended up staying there the most. I got to know a lot of folks. So Colin was included, Colin, who you see on the right. She was a regular participant, would come almost every Sunday and became a best friend. So that really prompted and motivated me to keep going back and checking in on how she was doing, and what was the state of affairs of Hunts Point, what were things, how were her annoying brothers. That's her. We made Polaroid prints that day. Her with the prints, other photos of neighbors, more folks, community. This was from our Greenway Ornaments workshop. So participants had the chance to make and design signs about protecting the Greenway on Lafayette Avenue. We had noticed that there was a lot of trash, there was a lot of garbage around that area, so we were trying to encourage people to protect the flowers and all the greenness that was happening over there. Those are some of the signs that came out. It looked like. Yeah. And after the workshop, I always walk over to the train, of course, and would just, was reminded to always be looking at the neighborhood, right? To be taking in what I saw. And so I would end up taking all these pictures and looking around and seeing the ideas and the things that were coming up. So 2 of those photos are actually from the Brownsville Community Mural Project's mural up in Hunts Point. So shout out to another fellow, connections happening there. So yeah, those are some of the stories. But, as you can see, I think I did a lot of thinking about neighborliness this summer, and neighborhoods. So I was thinking about gentrification, I was thinking about development displacement, white privilege, purchasing power, all of these things. But once I had the chance to really reflect on the summer and think about how am I going to talk about my experience, it was wait, keep it simple. Before we can talk about these things and really think about them, I think we need to focus on neighborhoods and our neighbors and who they are. You know what I mean? What did I really do this summer? I participated in these spaces where I could have fun, you know what I mean, and learn about these people and these neighbors. So yeah, that's what I've got for you.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Aliyah?
stayed involved with the Laundromat project, or if this has sort of influenced other things that you've been doing since the summer in any way.
Yeah, I've actually, so I'm kind of addicted to volunteering at their art workshops now. I try to as you know, when the chances come up. But so a couple weeks back, the LP had Field Day, which is their annual festival celebrating the neighborhoods they work in. So Hunts Point, Harlem, and BedStuy again. And I volunteered in Hunts Point and got to see Colin, which was really fun. But I'm also interested in like socially engaged art, community responsive art making. So this has really inspired my work and made me think about how I can bring it here at school. There's definitely a lot that goes on here in terms of navigating identity and like microaggression and other things in the classroom. So constantly thinking about how arts can respond to those things.
Any other questions or comments for Aliyah? Oh.
Very good presentation. So 3 out of 4 of you chose to work in the arts industries over the summer. And I think that this is like really interesting. Only one of you chose something that was not related to arts. And that's cool too. That's awesome. But I want to know if you guys were encouraged in any way, or what drove you to that point? Because I mean, like 75% is, you know, pretty high majority. I mean, you're in a liberal arts school, but what influenced that decision for the 3 of you? Thank you.
I guess I'll start. Yeah, I'm an artist. You know, like I came to Lang for arts and for using the arts in a way that it creates interventions, right? So, yeah, I think the arts are powerful in that way, right? That we can use them as a tool to think about what's going on, reflect, inspire dialogue, do all those things. And once I discovered the fellowship and, you know, learned that Lang CESJ is super supportive of using the arts in that way, I was super psyched to be able to pursue this opportunity to learn more about how to use that.
Karen or Colin, do you want to say anything?
Colin, want to respond? You should come up.
All right. So the reason why I decided to stay with the Rebel Diaz Arts Collective is because I realized for the 3 years I've been there, the other 2 years in the summer were times where I was actually away from them, because the first year, my first summer being with them, I was accepted into the HEOP program, Higher Education Opportunity Program. And we have to like dedicate 6 intensive weeks to this program. So I was hardly around during the summer. And then last summer I had like this 9-to-5 job where it just would not work out with me, like being able to organize with the ARDAC as much. And then when I heard that this fellowship was happening and they told me that you can be part of any social justice organization of your choice, I decided to use that advantage for me to be able to work closely with the ARDAC. Yeah.
Just want to give a shout out to Aasim because his infographic, I think, is deserving of art.
I'd actually like to say that I'm an artist myself, contrary to previous belief. But the reason why I chose to work with WEACT is because I think sometimes, and I'm not speaking for anybody here, but sometimes artists don't do their homework. And it's important to get the knowledge and behind these issues. And what people don't realize is that laws are constantly changing all the time. And most people have no idea what they are. And I know I didn't. And that's why I chose to put my nose in and do research. But I ended up doing art anyway.
As a writer, I've always been searching for some way of connecting creative practice and questions of justice and social justice. And at Visual Aids, I was in conversation about the arts, public health, race, class issues, what communities the art world chooses to prioritize, like all these things. It was, the arts was essential, but it was also these different conversations too. And as someone who is invested in archiving and writing and just like art generally, I love art. It was really important for me to like put all these things in dialogue with one another, and I think the arts is a fantastic way of achieving that. So, yeah.
Thank you all. I think Eugene Lang proves over and over again that art can be a form of social research and a catalyst for social change. So thank you all for proving it to us once again. And also, look at the room we're in. Orozco. What is this? So now, please feel free to get up, move around, shake it out, ask some questions, think some thoughts. There's still plenty of food outside. There's a sign-up sheet on the table over yon. If you're a student interested in learning more about this program and how you might be able to become involved. So please, I mean, I'm feeling very moved right now as a young person who knows all these individuals personally. One thing we talk about often is, oh my Lord, we are going to inherit the world one day, and all these mentors that we look up to are kind of expecting us to step up to the plate, and I have total faith after having heard all of this that it's going to be great. So eat some food, sign up, and talk to the fellows. And Judy will be talking and rounding us up come 8 o'clock.